Okay, so we are up. Oh, sorry, this is the wrong parak. Hold on. This should say Yud Beis Tes. All right, this is 12:9. And maybe I shouldn't say this right away, but it seems to be a fairly straightforward pasuk. Okay, so we'll see what happens. Tov nikle ve'eved lo mimiskabed v'chasar lachem. Now it's straightforward, but it's not the easiest to translate. Okay, and I put in the one word that you might not know here is nikle is from kala, which is to be lightly esteemed or dishonored with the British spelling here, or treat with contempt, dishonor, degraded, be held of little account. So anyone want to try translating this? Yeah, go ahead, Ayala.
So it's better to be dishonored and a servant is his.
Okay. Yeah, I'm going to actually make it the most ambiguous to him, just to keep it ambiguous. Yeah.
So from being honored, I'm not sure if that's like a his.
Okay, so whenever you have a tov blank me blank, then the mem does not mean from. It's a mem of comparison. So tov this me that. Yeah, then. Yeah, so you can't
be honored.
Yeah, then it's hispile though.
To honor oneself.
Yeah, one who honors himself. Now, this is a not very well known thing. I can't remember if it's come up in our Monday Night Mishlei Shiur. So hispile, the reflexive. Sorry, hispile can mean two things. It can either mean reflexive, or it can also mean to pretend. Okay, so then one who honors himself, or one who like pretends to be honored. Okay, v'chasar lachem.
And is lacking bread.
Yep, and lacks bread. Okay, better to be dishonored and a servant to him. Okay, which again, if that feels weird, it should feel weird because it's not, doesn't quite flow. Then yeah, hold on. Better, let's just say better a dishonored, better one. I'm just trying to make a match. One who is dishonored and a servant to him, than one who honors himself and lacks bread. Okay, there you go. Okay, so we have no mitzvus tzion. Sadigon says nikle sheyesh lo eved tov mimis kabed v'hu's chasar lachem. That's strange. So a degraded, dishonored person, sheyesh lo eved, who has a servant. Tov is better mimis kabed than a person who honors himself v'chasar lachem and lacks bread. Okay, that's a little strange. Targum says tavhu zalila v'avde isle. I think avde is plural. Min hu demisyakar v'chasar lachem. That's the same as sadigon, except for the plural thing, which is weird. Okay, art scroll. Better off is the lowly one who serves for his keep. Okay, I don't know where they get that from. I guess eved. I mean, eved is weird. They're using it as a verb, but eved lo, he serves for him. Okay, meaning it's trying to say that he serves for him, I guess for himself. Then the pompous one who lacks bread. I guess pompous one is probably kind of like that could go into either translation here. It honors himself or pretends to be honored. It is better. Living Nach says it is better to be self-effacing. Okay, that's a very much kinder, word for dishonored. And a slave to oneself, eved lo. So it's saying to him or to himself. Okay. Then too proud and lacking bread. Okay. Miskabed. Okay, I don't know where they're getting too proud from. Refer says better to be lowly esteemed, but one's own servant. Okay, that's I guess the servant to himself. Then to have haughtiness with a lack of bread. Okay, that's pretty much the same. Alter says better a scorned man. Okay, that's a much harsher term for nikle, who has a slave, than one who fancies himself honored and lacks bread. I guess fancies himself honored is like pretends to be honored. Like in his mind, he's honored and lacks bread. Okay, so let's do this. Let's keep those translations up here in case we need them. And we will move this down and then begin our analysis. I'm going to keep Sadigon, Arsenal, and Alter up there. Okay, so what are the questions here?
Yeah, I guess a question I have is why both? Like, why dishonored and a servant.
Okay.
Like,
Yeah. All right. That's an interesting way to, I mean, I get the question. I'm just trying to think how we should phrase this question here. I guess you could ask why both for both halves, right? So
Yeah.
let's say, okay, let's just say this. Why is this specific comparison being made with two qualities in each clause? Okay, like it seems to be focusing on the combination of the two. Yeah. Okay, good. Isaiah?
What is the tov in terms of?
Okay, good. So anytime this is not that you should apply rules, but anytime you see a pasuk that says better this than that, you have to say better in what sense? Okay, by what measure? By what standard? Yeah, Alex.
What does it mean to lack bread?
Okay, what does it mean to lack bread? Right, and we'll say, I'm just gonna fill in the blanks here. Is this literal, right? Like, i.e., no food, or figurative, i.e., like, e.g., not enough basic needs. And then I guess you could say, like, how much does one need to lack in order to qualify for this description? Okay, good.
Also, I have a second question, which is if we were to interpret it with the translation that says better this than to have a slave than that, what exactly, like, you would intuitively assume it's like worse to have like a slave or servant. So what does that really mean?
Hold on, let me make sure I'm understanding this. If you were interpreting it to mean
Better to be a scorned man who has a slave.
Yeah.
So like intuitively, it feels like that would be a worse thing.
Oh, okay, right. Okay, yeah. So I guess let's just put this as a separate question here, which is, what is the hava amina? Okay, i.e., what would we have thought without the pasuk? Okay, and then what is the reasoning behind the conclusion? Okay, yeah, Rivki.
Yeah, two questions.
Everyone's having two questions now. Yeah.
So one is, where are the like quote unquote characters, like who exactly is this pasuk speaking about? And then the second one is, like what's like the actual practical decision making? Because I can see kind of in the second half, maybe like saying like, don't honor yourself, whatever, it's a bad quality. But what is it? It's like specifically in the first half also.
Yeah, sorry, say the second again. I didn't get the second question. I was typing the first one.
Okay, so the second one was basically just what's the practical decision making, and specifically that I feel like I can understand more in the second half, like don't honor yourself, whatever. But then like specifically in the first half, what's actually like going on for us to understand.
Okay. All right, sounds good. Ayala.
Okay, so I think a little bit to expand on question 3. So like, what are the different scenarios? Like, what are the two situations like of the first half and the second half?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, you know what? I'm actually going to put that. I'm going to put that into question 1. Okay. What exactly is being compared here? What are the two scenarios? Yeah. Okay. Oops. Yeah, I spelled right. Yeah. Okay. I don't know why it's red squiggling me. Okay, Mayan.
Yeah, I also have two questions, jumping on the bandwagon.
Okay, fine.
The first one's I think also can be put into question 1, but it's the question of in whose eyes are these people nikla and mitchabe?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. I'm actually going to put that as a separate question. Yeah, in whose eyes is this person dishonored? Yeah, actually, you know what? It's interesting. I think that applies much more to the first question, because the second one is saying that he's honoring himself. But I'll ask it anyway for the sake of the pretending to be honored. Okay, and honor. Yeah.
But also you could say like, is it that the other people view him as someone who's trying to honor himself, or is it that?
Okay, I hear. Yeah.
And then the other one was picking up on the fact that it says ve'eved lo, and the other one just says v'chasar lechem.
Yeah.
So is it like, is this missing bread for the mass? Is it like he himself is missing bread? Like, what does this mean? And like, also ask that on the low.
Okay, so let's ask this as a factual question first, which is, what does it mean by a servant to him? Okay, who is a servant to whom? Does the subject, does the dishonored person have a servant? Is he a servant to someone else, or is he a servant to himself? That seems to be, those seem to be the three ways to read it. And then your other question is okay, you know what, I'm gonna put into the first one. It's probably, you can argue that this first question should be divided into many questions, but actually, you know what? No, I'm gonna put this as a new question. How are these two opposites? Okay, and then in that, I can't type. Specifically, how is servant to him the opposite of lacking bread? Yeah, Ariel.
Yeah, I only have one question.
Oh,
What's the scenario? Like, what exactly? Well, actually, it's like, okay, maybe one more. Like, what's the like, and also honoring himself from what? Like what is he patting himself on the back about? Or
yeah. All right. You know what? I'm gonna split this into two questions here. Okay, so who, in whose eyes is this person dishonored? Okay, and then what does it mean to honor himself or pretend to be honored? Again, like, why is he doing this? Yeah.
or like, not necessarily to himself, but like the honor is coming from something, like, for either an achievement he did or achievement that he
So say,
thinks he did.
how is he doing or attempting to do this?
And like, yeah, and what's the scenario really? Like,
yeah,
what's
scenario,
the case?
I'm putting in that one here.
Sorry, yeah.
That's okay. Yeah. All right, Isaiah.
Okay, I'm not sure if this is a good question, but
Real questions is two questions. Yeah.
at least it's one question.
Okay.
So if you translate this as, or if you interpret it as if pretending to be honored, someone who pretends to be honored and lacking bread, this pasuk seems kind of obvious because those are just two bad things. So anything is better than bad things, I would say.
Right. All right, that's a good question. Yeah, so I'm gonna put that into the Hava Amina question. Okay. Why would we thought? Okay, especially if we translate the second half as pretending to be honored and lacking bread, which is two bad things. Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, Ayala?
So is it significant that the first half is all passive and the second half is all active?
Tov nikla ve'evelo miskabed v'chasar lachem. That's interesting. I'll add that. I don't know. I'm gonna put this under like okay, I'll just ask the question here. Is it significant that the first half is passive and the second half is active? Very interesting question. Did not notice that one. Okay. Do we have, I want to add a question to, yeah, I'm going to add this to what are the two scenarios and what are their parameters? Okay, in other words, like, let's say, Evid Lo, whichever of the three interpretations we have, like, I doubt this means specifically an actual literal slave, right? So like, does it mean any position of subordination? Does it mean that you're dependent on this person for like your livelihood? So what are the parameters, which is really part of the question. What's the scenario? Okay, I feel like that's it. So let me copy and paste the questions into the chat as we have been doing. Okay, 1 through 5. Ayala, you have another question?
Yeah, are you able to just repeat the 3 different possibilities for Eved Lo?
Yeah, Eved Lo either means he is a slave to someone else, or it means that he has a slave, or it means that he is a slave to himself. Yeah, like Eved Lo, and he is a slave to him, to some other person, or Eved Lo, a slave is to him, meaning he has a slave, or Eved La'atzmo, which seems to be how one of the meforshim took it. Okay, let us have our thinking minute. Okay, I had a feeling there were going to be a lot of ideas. See the hands lining up. Okay, let's go. Rivki, go ahead.
Okay, so I was thinking that there's like 2 main things that pop into my head for like a headline. So I was thinking that this would be about honor and like just like situation. So I was thinking that I think like it's just the natural inclination to hold on, I'm just gonna turn off. This is really annoying me. But I was thinking that with honor, it's just natural to want honor. And I was thinking, I mean, maybe just because we had Purim, and I was thinking that like we clearly see themes of that throughout the entire Megillah.
Yeah.
So like I was thinking here that this pasuk is telling us that even though it's something that everyone wants, that it's not something that you need to have in order to be like sameach b'chalko. So you could be a person who is in a subordinate position. Like I'm not necessarily taking this literally as a slave,
Right.
but yeah, you could be in a position that's lower than someone else, that person is, let's say just like roasting you about your position, like, haha, you don't have bread, or like whatever the thing would be. And then the other part is not just about the honor, but about the situation that we can see in the second half of the pasuk, that someone who either is like honoring himself or has nothing to actually be honored about, but is still pretending that he has things to be honored about. Let's say I'm just taking bread because it's in the pasuk. So let's say he doesn't have any bread, but he is pretending like he has so much, meaning bread is like a synonym for wealth and like just a lot of food and stuff. So if he's pretending like he has so much, he's like, yeah, like I should be honored. He's in a worse position than the quote unquote servant, because the servant is recognizing where he's at. So even though he's getting pushed down, he's still better off than the person who either actually does have bread or is pretending not to have bread, but who wants to be in a better position and is like deluding himself.
Okay, so let me actually divide what you're saying into 2 parts. The first part is a very conservative core, which I think can go to different directions, which I'm going to take my notes on this because I know I'm going to need them. So we definitely see from here that that honor is not necessary for goodness. Okay, right? Because the person in the first half of the pasuk has the opposite of honor, and yet he's better off than the person in the second half. Okay, and I'm going to add to this, and you can go ahead and say that this is not your intent, but to answer Isaiah's question about if we say that this person in the second half is pretending to be honored and lacking bread, that seems to be 2 bad things. Here's the funny thing about honor, is that honor only exists as a social reality. So if you're pretending to be honored and like people are falling for it, or like buying into it, then that is honor in a way, like it is, that's how you can have a phenomenon of like the emperor's new clothes, where like as long as everyone's keeping up the ruse, then like he is honored. And then, so I think that the pasuk is talking to someone So who's the pasuk talking to? The pasuk's talking to someone. Let's see, the pasuk is talking to someone who thinks that honor is the greatest commodity, and even more so than actual bread. Okay, so that's like the conservative core of the pasuk, which is going to be true, I think, no matter what. Now the question is, I think in order to fully develop this, we need to flesh out why the pasuk is talking about this Eved thing, and like what is being added by like the Eved lo and the Chasar Lachem. I think that's the like that's the part that needs just to be developed. And so either you said it and I missed it, or we need to develop it a little bit more. So I'll give Rivki first crack at like if you were saying something to like take a stance on that, I just missed it, and then if not, then if anyone wants to like fill in that before we go into another idea.
Do you mind just going back down, because I don't remember what you wrote for?
Yeah, we definitely see from here that honor is not necessary for goodness, because the person in the first half of the pasuk has the opposite of honor, and yet he's better off than the person in the second half. The pasuk is talking to someone who thinks that honor is the greatest commodity, even more so than actual bread. Now, you did say something which I didn't incorporate in here, which is sameach b'chalko, which is being happy with what you have. And I would need to be convinced that that is in the pasuk.
Okay.
Like I agree with your idea, but I'm not sure if I see that in the.
Yeah, I think the reason why, like, just to try to explain that, the reason why I think I was like picking up on that was because they're both in positions, like, I think more so if you read it as pretends to be honored or whatever that would mean, that the person in the first half and then the second person are both in positions where they want that, that could potentially be bad. So I was thinking that even though the slave or whatever that would mean, even if it's just a person that's in a lower position is in a, submissive position, that could be seen as negative. Like if they, let's say, wanted honor and they wanted more things, not just honor, because I feel like a servant would be missing, quote unquote, a lot of things, not just honor. Right. But this pasuk is saying no, because their mindset is recognizing that the situation they're in is what they're in right now. So like you can only do so much about it. Whereas the person who is honoring himself or is pretending to be honored is also in a negative position, but they're not seeing it the way that the servant is seeing it. They're seeing it in a way of,
Okay, so I see what you're saying. I still am not convinced that I don't see that from the pasuk. Okay, and let's just reawaken the system that we invented last time, right? We invented a system. Ariel's using it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I'm using it. Is it the Torah?
Yeah. The only problem is it doesn't move you to the front of the line.
Oh, so it doesn't stay.
I have to be like constantly scrolling.
Wait. What about this? Would that work? No,
it's not working. Yeah, unfortunately, I think the hand trumps everything. But let's go, Ariel, and I also saw Isaiah has a comment to add to that. So let's go with the Ariel first. Yeah, you want to?
Okay, so I'm just gonna preface. I'm gonna be transparent. I have no idea how it'll fit in with the.
That's fine. Okay.
But I think that so I'm just gonna restate Rivki's idea just so I think I got it basically. It seems like the second half of the pasuk, like, like it's if someone is being honored or he honors himself, then like he's not really recognizing the true reality of the situation if he doesn't have bread. So he's kind of like, okay.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. That's interesting. I did not get that from what Rivki is saying, but that's a good. A good point.
Well, is that what she was saying or not? Because I'm trying to come up with with the first half of the idea to for her. But I don't know.
I guess Rivki can weigh in on what she's saying, but you were saying that he's not recognizing the reality of his own situation.
Yeah, that is what I was saying.
Yeah, okay, all right.
Being like,
okay, now I'm sorry. Okay, that was the piece I was missing. Maybe. Yeah, go ahead, Ariel.
Okay. Well, I'm glad I could help. So for the first half, maybe you could say that it's better to be in line with reality and really understand the situation that you're currently in than to be, honored, because it doesn't mean anything, because, it's like, okay, I'm honored, but I'm also dirt broke. Well, right. So like I have no food, right? And not only that, like I think another piece that we could add on to Rivki's approach is that, if you are being honored, right? people are gonna view you as someone who may not necessarily be broken, that you don't need help, and that could be kind of self-harming, right? Like you need help. The reality is you need help, right? Like if you have no bread, like you're starving, you're gonna go hungry, your family's gonna suffer. But like in the first half, like it's better to even be dishonored, to like be put down and whatever, and because you are in a specific situation that you need money or you need, I don't know, food, then like that's more important. Like,
okay, so could we say this then? Let me take a move here, and I don't know if this is developing Rivki's idea based on what Ariel's saying, or if this is a new idea, but I just want to try this. Is that the pasuk is talking about two people who were in the same situation? Okay, both of them lack bread. Okay, but the difference is the guy in the first half of the pasuk is recognizing that he's in a bad state, and he's realizing that he is dependent on others. Okay, and by is dependent on others, like that's the only way he's going to survive. Like whether he's actually like, taking tzedakah or not, he is functionally the only way he's going to live is dependent on others. The second guy is trying to maintain his kavod, trying to maintain his dignity and his esteem or whatever, and he actually lacks bread, and he's refusing to accept the fact that he's dependent on others. So excuse me. So the first person is, so they're both in a bad situation. The first person is accepting his situation, and the second person is denying it. And what Ariel is saying is that the first person is going to actually be able to get help and to move up from that, whereas the second person is going to be like, first of all, he's in denial of his own position of lacking, and then also other people, if he's putting up this act, other people aren't going to see that he needs help, so it's going to end up being bad for him. Do we think that this is a similar idea, or this is a different idea this is primarily for Rivki and Ariel?
I think the first half was the same, but I think the second half is different. Like I like the idea, it's just not what I was saying.
So what are you saying for the second half? Because I was thinking that what I was saying in the second half is more like what you were saying, because the guy in the second half is refusing. I thought you were saying he's refusing to really like accept his situation.
Yeah, meaning the only thing that I didn't think of was like why it would be bad for him, but the reason I like it because it's
right.
Decision making, but everything else is what I was saying.
Okay, right. All right. So let me just get this down just in note form. We can always change it later on. Okay. So this is that. I'm gonna just put this as a separate bullet point, and we can merge them later on. Okay, which is that both people in the pasuk are in a state of lack, but the person in the first half acknowledges that he is degraded and is dependent on others, and that is what is going to allow him to move forward and extricate himself from that situation. Okay, the person in the second half refuses to acknowledge the reality of a situation and takes active measures to deny it to himself and to others. That's like honoring himself, and is either going to stay in that situation of lack or make it worse because he's masking it from those who can help and refusing to face it himself.
Yeah, I think also just to quickly add, because I think the reason why I wasn't concentrating on the second part of what Ariel was saying, even though I like it, was that I was saying this whole thing in more of like a psychological, like torment way, as opposed to like a practical way.
Consequences. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And I think the torment is a factor, but I think, like Rabbi Moskowitz's Musar to me is always focused on the practical before the psychological. So Isaiah had a comment first, and then I saw Ayala as well to add to this before we go into new approach. Isaiah, is yours still relevant?
My comment was like exactly what you added, that he is, but I had a little bit further to say is like in I think the Torah society, Jewish society, like a slave is actually someone who has their needs provided for them. Like they don't, like they get their bread, they're not lacking bread. And so he's a slave is a person who is like degraded, like people look down on them, but they get what they need. And maybe this person is sort of recognizing that's the reality they're in, and then fill in the rest of
Yeah,
what
that's
was
a
already said.
good point. Good point to frame it as the Torah framework. Yeah, Ayala, you had something to add?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
So who exactly is the audience and what is this advice? Like, how would this be practical?
Good question. So I think I'm going to take a stance here. Even though this pasuk is talking about is seemingly someone who is in a state of poverty, I think this is talking about anyone who is in any state of lack of any good that is going to result in a societal stigma. Like, let's just extend it. I don't know if the Meiri is going to actually do this, but this is what he would do is, let's say it's in the realm of knowledge, because you see this people make this mistake a lot, is that there are people who lack knowledge in a certain area. And there are people who will accept that and realize, okay, I'm totally dependent on the expertise of someone else. And like, in a Baishan Lomate, someone who's ashamed is not going to be able to learn. And I'm going to have to like depend on that and function in the society in a way where I am lacking. But eventually, if I acknowledge that and I humble myself before people and I depend on their knowledge, I will get to the point where I can know, and then I won't be lacking anymore, and then I won't be a servant. But then there are other people who do lack bread, they do lack knowledge, but they refuse to acknowledge that fact, and so they hold themselves. They project this image of someone who really knows, and they try to mask all their ignorance. And then what ends up happening is they don't develop their knowledge, and they also run the risk, and people don't supply them with the knowledge, and then they run the risk of embarrassing themselves even further, or of getting the consequences of their lack of knowledge. So it's talking to anybody who's in a state of lack, which translates into a societal stigma, and saying that you're better off. Yeah, this is not a good state, but you're better off acknowledging it and accepting it and working from where you're at than to try to mask it and pretend that it's not there. And then in order to uphold this superficial veneer of Kavod. Yeah,
Would you need to?
Okay. No, go ahead.
Sorry. I was just going to say, I don't know if this is outside the scope of Mishlei, but would you have to address the person? Because the person is obviously valuing honor. So do you have to say, is there something which can remove him from that value, or is just saying the practical consequence?
I accidentally tipped my hand here because I have an idea that I encountered when I was copying and pasting things from the Rambam, and I'll show it. Okay, I don't know if it's the same idea or not, but it's very short. Rambam says like this: Tov nikle, tov mi shehu nikle ve'eved la'atzmo. Lasos avodosav babais uvasade kadesh yasik torfo. So better for a person to be degraded and a servant to himself, to do his work in the house and in the field, in order kadesh yasik torfo, in order to get what he needs. Mimishu miskabed, better him than someone who honors himself. Rosalam shiavduhu achirim, that others work for him. I think yavduhu achirim v'hu chaser lachem. And he lacks bread. Okay, you can actually almost kind of ignore that whole thing. This is the part I really wanted. Ki hakalon el harishon sofo lekavod, v'hakavod el hasheni sofo lekalon. Beautifully said. That shame to the first guy will culminate in honor, but honor to the second guy will culminate in shame. Okay. In other words,
paste that and put it in the chat.
Yeah.
I like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Because so that's answering Ayala's thing, and this is classic Mishlei, right? This guy is, like Ayala observed, this guy is operating in a Kavod framework, but the goal is not to break him from the framework. The goal is to show him, yeah, right now you're degraded, but if you acknowledge your degraded state and accept it and face it and don't try to hide it and work, you will get to a state of Kavod. But if you try to conceal your degraded state, eventually then you're going to run out of money, or you're going to need to beg for bread, and you're going to get ashamed. So you're going to get, if you want Kavod, you have to face the immediate degradation, and work with that. Okay, I think I saw Rifki do a party thing. I don't know what to call it. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question.
Sure.
So when we say v'chasar lachem, could we say because I was just really understanding that as a basic need, because bread is so basic.
Right.
But we also understand it more like what you were saying, that because it's so basic, it could be basically anything that, you were saying, knowledge. So is one better than the other?
In terms of as an interpretation, is one better than the other? I think we are dealing with something basic, and I was just going with the nigla and the nister. In the nigla, we're talking about material basic necessities, and then in the nister, in the esoteric meaning, we're talking about metaphysical basic necessities, which is going to be knowledge or something in that line. Yeah. Okay. Good idea. I don't know how many ideas that was, but I mean, it feels unified. Let's go with Alex now.
So my idea is a little bit more half-baked, and it would fall
that's
apart
fine.
very easily if my interpretation
Look,
of
you're admitting that you
is
lack
wrong.
fully baked bread. You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when we first read it, I interpret it as it's better to be like dishonored in the eyes of like society or whatever, and to be a servant to Hashem. That's how I interpreted Evan Low. I don't know if anyone else would do that.
That's actually a possibility we didn't mention. I'm just going to add that thing. Okay.
Okay.
Right. Let's say another human being or to Hashem. Okay. Yeah, I bet someone says that. That's good.
Oh, okay. That makes me feel better. I was like,
no, I mean, I don't know, but
if
it's not, then they should. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So I was thinking it's better to be like dishonored in the eyes of society and to be thought of as like a lowly person, but to still be a Eved Hashem, than to be someone that honors themselves and lacks bread. I interpreted lacks bread as like lacks substance.
Okay.
Kind of a simple idea, but
okay. So first of all, let me just out of curiosity, what was the previous pasuk? I just want to see if the previous pasuk talked about Hashem. No, it didn't. Because that would be a really good support if that were the case. But fine. So better to be a degraded person and a servant to Hashem than one who honors himself. So I think that the key here is going to emerge from the honoring oneself, because I know I quote this pasuk every single shiur, but we're going to do it again because it's the two most important pasukim in Nach, in my opinion. The Yirmiyahu 9, 22 and 23. Yeah. Okay. Not that we're not that we're talking about this right now, but if anyone is in charge of my epitaph when I die, I would like these two pasukim to be on my epitaph. Okay, these are these. If there's anything that that summarizes my entire view of Torah, it is these two pasukim. So, Komar Hashem, thus says Hashem, and listen to the reflexive. Al yishalel chacham b'chachmaso. A person should not praise himself for his wisdom, which the Rambam here says means midos. The al yishalel hagibor b'gvuraso, and a person should not praise himself for his physical perfection, whether that's beauty or strength or health. Al yishalel asher ba'ashro, a wealthy person should not praise himself for his wealth, whether that is material wealth or status. Ki im bezos yishalel hamishalel. Only in this can one praise himself. Haskil v'yadoa osi, knowing and comprehending me, ki ani Hashem, because I am Hashem, oseh chesed mishpat utzedaka ba'aretz, who does kindness, justice, and righteousness on earth. Ki be'ela chafatzti ne'um Hashem, because in these is my desire, says Hashem. So the types of kavod that society really does care about is those first three categories. Is either because of your reputation of how good of a person you are in terms of like just a nice person, like being on l'chavero, not in terms of justice and absolutely, but just like you're a nice person, or in terms of your physical prowess or your wealth and status and power. And so better to be lacking in all of those and be a servant of Hashem. And servant of Hashem means knowing God in a manner that leads you to do chesed, mishpat, and tzedakah. Okay, then one who honors himself, and this is where I want to try to develop it a little bit more, one who honors himself and lacks bread. Okay, so honoring yourself, I can see, being like, if you're deriving honor from these other things, then this is ultimately in a subjective framework that you're getting this honor. It's not in the objective framework of God's value system. The lacking bread is the part that I want to think about more. I understand what you're saying about lacking substance. I don't know if that idiom quite satisfies me. Lacking bread, like I do like the idea of bread as a staple. Can we
just restate her idea one more time?
Yeah, that the essence of Alex's idea is better to be degraded in the eyes of society, but to be a servant to Hashem. Okay, and then the opposite of that I'm suggesting would be honoring yourself. See, if you do that, then you're really worthy of honor in the truest sense. But if you're honoring yourself, that means that you're trying to derive honor from some subjective human phenomenon, which is those three things that the Rambam mentioned in Yirmiyahu of just reputation for being a good person, or physical or wealth, and then lacking bread, and we got to get the lacking bread thing. Yeah, Yosef, you want to?
Yeah, this is basically going to fit into my idea.
Okay, sure.
I'm taking a similar approach, which is that Tov Niklev Eved Lo means that I want to take the same approach to say it's like an Eved Hashem.
Yeah.
Meaning, and that means Miskabed v'chasar lachem is a very different approach than what we've taken so far. But I think what it's saying is that someone who is basically someone who starts from the bottom with nothing, right? Meaning they're the most successful type of miskabed, right? Meaning that they are able to be miskabed even though they don't have any status or bread, right?
Okay.
It's saying that that even the person with the greatest ability to be miskabed, right, the person who's able to get kavod, right, independently without even bread.
Oh, okay.
Right, is still less. They're not as good as a person who is Eved Lo, right? Is an Eved Hashem,
All
right?
So, yeah, go ahead.
So what I want to say is kind of this, which is that the idea is that the person who utilizes his is the person who just utilizes his own current status to become an Eved Hashem, meaning he uses his own like status. He sees that he is low and he realizes that he is an Eved Hashem, right? Meaning he is dishonored, and then he uses that to recognize that he is really subordinate to God, and then is better than someone who just pursues kavod, even if that skill of just pursuing kavod is not as valuable as the skill of being able to become an Eved Hashem from your own status.
Okay. All right. So that is giving us something to work with here. So let me just restate this and then type it out. Actually, I'm going to type it out now, which is Alex, and then I'm going to put Yosef here. Okay. So better to be someone who is degraded in the eyes of society, okay, because they don't measure up in terms of all the non-essential things that people value, okay, and who's great but is a servant of Hashem, okay, then here's Yosef's point, then even a self-made man, right? That's like the idea that you're saying, I think, right? Like, i.e. someone who starts with zero and earns all his honor by himself. Right. Yeah. So it's using the most extreme example of that second half. Right. And yeah.
There's just one thing. This is the thing I'm kind of iffy on. I'm not like sure. Not so sure about it, but maybe the connection between Tov Niklev and Eved Lo is saying that either it's just saying that he's in the worst condition, right? And that he's an Eved Hashem, or it's saying that he uses being at the bottom to recognize the real subordination of being subordinate to God.
Right. So what I like about that second thing you said is it feels more symmetrical in the pasuk.
Yeah. So that's why I like it more, but I don't know if it's so implied, but
I hear, right? In other words, that it's parallel to the parallel in Rivki and Ariel's idea, which is that in Rivki and Ariel's idea, we're talking about two people who are in the same situation, and It's a question of how they frame it and what they do with it. Here also, it's two people who recognize that they lack nothing, but then the guy in the second half says, okay, well, I'm going to build myself up and I'm going to make myself into like this billionaire or whatever and like get everyone's honor. And the first guy says, no, I have nothing, and no matter how much I get, I'm going to have nothing, right? Like you, what you know, that's like the I don't know, I hear this quoted a lot, right? That the Avram Avinu, David Melech said, I'm a worm, you know, like I'm a worm and not a man, and like Avraham said, I'm like dust, and Moshe said, I'm like nothing. You know, like the real reality is realize that you're nothing and you're totally dependent on God. And okay, let's add this point. Okay, so
that it feels a little more of a stretch, but I like the idea, and I think
I do like the idea. Let's just say this. Okay, in other words, that okay, both people recognize on some level that they are nothing, but whereas the second guy attempts to cover that up by seeking kavod in a self-making way, the first guy realizes this is reality. I am an Eved. I'm an Eved Hashem. You know. Oops. Right. Yeah. Yeah, I also I share the same doubt, and I share the same like of the idea. So like I think it's a nice thing. But I like that better than I just even without that move. I like the idea of the chaser lachem. No, just to clarify, Alex. The reason why I don't like it is lacking substance feels like a forced idiom, and for me, I'm not so keen on that one. But yeah, okay. If anyone, yeah, Isaiah, go ahead.
So I had an alternative second half that fits in with Alex's first half.
That, yeah.
So maybe you could say that it's like the Machshavah, someone who isn't an Eved Hashem, they're into the societal things that society values and not the true values. And so their chaser lachem means they're lacking what essentially life is about. And lechem is like the essential food. So they're like,
right.
It is an idiom still, but they're lacking like life's essential purpose by going for the societal values.
Yeah, that I would accept. I would accept that also. That's an idiom that we do see in the Tanakh, or that I've seen in the Tanakh. It could be that the other one is also, but yeah. Alex?
My thing is on the last thing. I like the idea of self-made man, but I feel like it wouldn't be as applicable here, because if it was the case, then it would say they lack bread and honor themselves. I feel like the lacking bread would come first if it was talking about someone self-made.
I hear that critique. Yeah.
Also, I did say it was half-baked. So
yes, that's true. No, I'm not faulting you. I'm just pointing out that I'm not ready to eat the underbaked part. Yeah. Okay. Good. All right. So there still is room for development there, but I like the core idea though. Okay. Mayan, you're up.
Okay, so my idea follows a lot of like very similar themes and a lot of very similar ideas.
Yeah.
But it was more in terms of like leadership.
Okay.
I was thinking about like that in terms of how like the public views you. So in the first half, I could be talking about a leader that's viewed by the public as like not so great. He's like not so honored, but he knows what he's doing, and like he still has that like rulership that's still there, and they still follow what he says because he still has sound logic. He is dishonored, as opposed to the second half, which is talking about someone who was falsely honored, and he's like very charismatic, but like chaser lachem, like at the end of the day, his policy is still failing them, and that he's not able to like
he doesn't bring results
the public needs.
Interesting.
Let them eat cake.
What's the Eved Lo?
The Eved Lo would be that they are a servant to him being the leader. Okay. That the public is the Eved to.
Right. Okay, so that's interesting. So he is Nick, and just remind me again, he's Nikla in what sense?
That he's not, for some reason, he's not honored by the public. Whether it be that like he's, maybe like the population's like racist.
Right. Yeah. Okay. Anyone want to add to that? Because I have some thoughts on it. But yeah, Alex, go ahead. And then Ariella.
I like the idea a lot. But I think it would work better if you tweak like the servant part to like the servant of the people, where like people like your constituents dishonor you, but you're still ultimately serving them in the best way possible.
So he is a servant to the nation or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that does fit better, I think.
Yeah, that does.
Yeah. Okay, I like that. Yeah, Ariel?
Yeah, I guess before I stated, so essentially, Mayan, are you saying that that like you can have two different types of leaders, one leader who kind of gets off there, by pretending he's something that they're not, and the first person is like, someone who actually gets there through actual credibility, but like at the same time he can, be because of his actions, it may be perceived that he's not good, so he may be dishonored. Is that what you're saying?
I don't know if necessarily that it's because of his actions that he's dishonored.
It could be some superficial thing.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Arguably like Moshe Rambenu, right? I mean, he was not a good speaker. He didn't, people didn't like him as much as they liked Aaron, but he had results. Torah,
So,
right.
So can you just restate what you're saying then? Because
actually, how about this? Let's just try this. Let me try typing it, and then that way Mayan can tell me if I'm catching the essence, then we can have it on here.
Yeah. Because
So
I think I have an add-on. I just want to make sure that it makes sense.
so better to be a leader who is, I'm going to use Alex's addition here, who is a servant to the people, i.e., doing what is actually in their best interests, even if he is degraded by some other quality, okay, then someone who has a lot of esteem but doesn't bring home the bread, okay, in terms of results. So first of all, Mayan, is that accurate, or am I missing something, or am I distorting something?
No, yeah, I think that's accurate.
Okay, and then Ariel, you wanted to,
Okay, so I have a slight deviation of her idea.
okay, let me go back to the pasuk.
Yeah, the way I was, I first I thought Jan was saying that that you had someone who may not, okay, forget about leader, but got into like a job, by kind of lying on the resume, right? And like at their job, like you could see that, okay, like the bread, like I like Mian's approach, like the bread was like, okay, her actual, what she actually had to offer that she just didn't have because she lied on it, and therefore she just got fired or whatever, someone. But the first, and like even in a leader, let's say you have a leader who kind of became king out of pure luck or lied his way on there by charisma, and like he has no idea of what he's doing as a leader, and like the bread basically is the the I don't know, the concrete or whatever you want to call it that holds the kingdom together or whatever, but like the first half of the pasuk, like like you could have a leader who's really good to his people, but at the same time some of the decisions that he makes may not be perceived as good for the people, or people may not like him for it, but it's necessary, and that's really important for the kingdom, and he just has to do that even though he himself will be degraded for it.
Right. So the difference between what you're saying and Mayan is saying, the way I'm hearing it, is that the Mayan is saying that the Nikla could really be like, for some superficial reason, and you're saying that like the people are like actively disapproving of his decisions and looking down on him because of that, but he's objectively doing what's good for them.
Yeah, he's being dishonored.
Yeah.
It's better to be dishonored and by the people, and to actually be a good king. Yeah.
Okay, what he's doing. Yeah, I have to think about which one I like better. I have an example maybe of this, and I don't know if the facts bear this out, but what's the name of the CEO of Apple? Is it Tim Cook or Tom Cook? I know there's a Cook in there. Tim. Okay, yeah. So I believe this was a good example because if I remember correctly, Steve Jobs left a huge void to fill, and he was a guy who had Kavod, and brought results. And so I think because of I think when Tim Cook took over, I think people were in doubt because he was not that flashy personality, that glorious flashy personality that Steve Jobs was. But what he did was he basically like continued to implement the company's values, and then working, sort of like a lahavdil, like in a Yitzchak type successor role to Abraham. And from my understanding, Apple is still successful. Like he continued to do that even though he was not in those same shoes. So he ultimately, the fact that he was an Eved in a good way to the company, he was like loyal to the company and its values and produced the bread, is what is what made him a good leader. But you can imagine someone stepping in who was just like trying to be like this next bombastic, like larger than life, like Steve Jobs type of character. But if he couldn't bring results, then the whole thing would have failed, but that could string people along a lot for a long time. People would like the image oftentimes more than the reality, so yeah. Okay, I like the idea. Anything else that anyone has to add to this idea? Okay, all right. So Mayan, unless you have anything else, then okay. So then Isaiah, go ahead.
Okay. I think my idea is different from other ideas.
Ooh.
So I think it's the way I'm interpreting it is like it's better to be. It's in terms of where you should try to get kavod from if you're trying to get kavod.
Okay.
And the pasuk is teaching you that it's better to lack some amount of social kavod, but get kavod from having things like owning slaves, like physical things that could give you kavod, than it is to like be socially sort of looked down on and not have anything. So if you're going to try to get kavod from things as opposed to getting kavod from other people, because those things actually at least they don't go away. They're not, they're a little more real than what you might get from other people. So yeah.
Okay, interesting. And where does the chasar lachem fit in?
Where did the chasar lachem fit in? I guess it was like where you're going to put your energies, like into like what other people think of you, and not putting it into like having stuff, or put your energies into like getting stuff and not caring about what other people think of you.
Okay, so I feel like there is something there, but I feel like the two particulars that it chooses are strange, given the idea of Eved and bread,
Right. Yeah. I guess I don't know what having an Eved like meant back then.
Right. Now it's like a bad thing, but Right. Yeah. Yeah. I definitely like the thrust of your idea. So I'm just going to write down the part that I like so far, and then we can add to it if we need to. So with Isaiah, we have the subject of the pasuk is what to invest your energy in to get kavod. Okay. And then the theory was it should be in like real acquisitions like slaves than in purely social approval. I mean, I like that idea in isolation, even though it doesn't fully explain the pasuk. Like you see, this is really more of a trend probably now than it was back in Shlomo Melech's time, of like people getting a certain fame in the news cycle or getting something, having something be viral. That's purely just in kavod. That's just like a fame in people are noticing you right now, but there's nothing that you actually have that you've accomplished that is permanent. So I like that approach. Yeah, Ariel, you want to add to this?
Yeah, I don't really understand it. I tried to read it, but like I'm not getting it.
Okay, I mean, what I understand Isaiah to be saying is that people want kavod, right? And they will get it in various ways. So it is very tempting to do what is going to get you the most eyeballs or the most praise or the most, getting kavod just from people, but not actually like increasing your possessions or your resources or your standings. And then the other one is like ignoring what people say and just like building your wealth or building your resources. And it's saying that first thing is a better investment, because people's attention is fickle, and that's going to go away. But if you have like, a guy becomes a millionaire and has a house, I mean, like that's always going to be viewed by people as having esteem, So my only question on it is why focus on Eved specifically and Lechem specifically, but I'm just trying to articulate the idea that he's saying.
I think I got it.
Okay. Rifki.
Can I add to?
Oh, sure. Yeah. Sorry, I didn't see your party. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So maybe I was thinking to answer the question about like, why does it specifically say Eved? Yeah. Can it be that this is again someone who's like looking for honor, and the second guy is trying to like exactly what Isaiah was saying, try to like get it in like a public way, but he's gonna end up lacking the basic necessity because he's prioritizing getting honor on a grand scale, whereas the first guy is recognizing that like a servant is, I guess, like building up his household, and instead of like trying to get honor by like getting the public on his side, he's going to create his own little place where he could get the honor that he wants.
Right.
And that like, not only is he going to get the honor in that small way, so he's going to end up like satisfying that want for honor, but he's also actually like building something productive. And like, he's going to start this household with a servant and with like he's like actually starting something up.
Okay,
So he's using this as something.
So then the modern example then, according to that interpretation, would be like an employee, like having someone work for you, right? That it's two things. You are getting the honor because you now have an employee who's like admiring you, but then you're also, that's building up the infrastructure that is going to actually like build your business that's going to like get you more honor, as opposed to just getting like the again, just the flashiness, Yeah.
Yeah, I think it could be an employee or any, like, even if it's not a specific work environment, but like any other situation in your life where you could like build your own little like system.
Right. Okay. So why Eved versus Lechem? So Ayala's answer is the Eved is a small step in the direction of both getting Kavod and building a long-term like source of Kavod. Whereas the guy in the second half is so focused on building Kavod on a grand scale that he doesn't even like take care of his basic needs. What's a good example of this is North Korea, where like North Korea, it's, people are starving and they're trying to build up like one of the best militaries in the world, even though no one's really like trying to attack them because they just want to show their power. But how good is that power going to actually be if you're depleting like the resources of your country and like the people aren't going to honor you even, and like the world's not going to honor you. It's just like a very short-sighted type of thing. Yeah, Ariel, you wanted to add to this?
Yeah, I just kind of just have a question. How is that like in line with like Isaiah's main idea? Meaning, I thought the main idea of Isaiah was that like you should focus on your own needs first without, wanting the kavod.
No, Isaiah's is about how to get Kavod.
Oh, it's about how to get Kavod?
The subject of the pasuk is what to invest your energy in to get Kavod.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry, and I do think, by the way, that this is something that is true according to all the interpretations. That this pasuk is about someone who values Kavod, and the question is, what do you do with it? And so there's different approaches to take here. The highest level approach is like Alex and Yosef was saying, is like, the only kavod you should care about is kavod in terms of living as an Eved Hashem. But then all these other approaches are like the normal Mishlei way of dealing with it, which is, don't try to get rid of your kavod desire. That's for Kohelas to do, but in Mishlei, get kavod, but just do it intelligently,
Right. And like by you getting the servant, you're taking care of your immediate necessities. And like ultimately that will build a foundation to.
Yeah. Even though you're not going on the grand scale, but you are getting you're taking a small step in terms of long-term kavod.
And what's the bread?
The bread is that you're prioritizing your image over your basic necessities. So I think the corollary here would be like people who go into debt, let's say like credit card debt or whatever, in order to like build up this there are people who will try to cultivate the image of a rich person or a famous person when they don't actually have. I know I haven't mentioned this in a year, but let's say like inventing Anna.
I was about to say inventing.
Yeah, right. So like that was the whole thing, like prioritizing the image. And I guess in a certain sense she had a plan, but she neglected her basic necessities, and made a bunch of other Mishlei mistakes also. Yeah.
So the bread is making presenting yourself as like this luxurious image that you can't sustain.
The miskabed is presenting yourself as a luxurious image that you can't sustain, and the lacking bread is not taking care of your basic needs.
Got it. Okay, I like that. That's good.
Okay, Rivki.
Yeah, so I was thinking it really is very possible that everyone else got this and I didn't, but I was like, it's probably a good thing to just say it anyway. So I was thinking specifically about what I was saying, but I think it could also apply to all of them, that and lacking bread is specifically saying that not only is the second person lacking whatever apply to whatever idea you're thinking about, like I was thinking about myself, like the, basic needs, whatever. But I was thinking that for the first half, that it specifically is saying that person does have that. So, Or like not, I don't guess it doesn't fit as well with what I was saying in terms of literal bread, because, or unless you say, I think Isaiah said like a servant in the Jewish world wouldn't. So I guess in that sense it would, but like dafka, that because the first person is doing whatever they're doing correctly, they're not lacking what the second person is, even though they're on like, an even playing field.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is a legitimate Mishlei move to say that the first half it does have bread. What I'm really reminded of is let me just think this through for 1 second before I so we had at yeshiva an in Shabbos a couple weeks ago, and Mark Solomon spoke, and Mark Solomon is a guy in our yeshiva. He doesn't even let people know that he has smicha, but he's he is, he basically decided early on in yeshiva, when he was in yeshiva, that he wants to make a career where he can take care of all his family and all of his needs, but he wants to be able to learn for half a day, so he basically, and his I think his father and brother had like this business, which I don't know what it was, but I get the impression it was like a money-making business. And they wanted to take him into the business, and he didn't want to go into that because it would mean he would have to give up like his learning. So he looked for careers that would like allow him to have this lifestyle. So he went into large appliance repair. Okay. And he basically made a career out of this where he made his own hours, and like he would go to yeshiva for the whole first half of the day, and then go and work until the evening. And I remember, I forgot, we had a bunch of questions, and he succeeded in this. And I remember I asked him a question. I asked him a bunch of questions. I don't remember what the question was, but like I asked him this question about, the standard of living basically, and he said something like, he said, look, he said, thank God, like my wife is not someone who like has crazy needs. And we didn't, when we went on vacation, it would be like once a year, we would take our kids to the Poconos, and like, we live within our means, and like, I paid for all my kids' tuition. He has like 6 kids or whatever. I paid for all my kids' tuition, never had to rely on anything. And it was just like, this was a literal case of like, not that he's degraded objectively in my eyes, he's the opposite, but like in other people's eyes, like modest home, and he's an Eved Lo, he works for himself, he's and it's an Eved type work. Like he's doing appliance repair, which is not what Jewish parents dream of for their kids, but he's tov. He has a better tov than someone who, you have all these people who are like going out there and like on the one hand, like having like rich, lavish, houses in the 5 towns, and like Pesach vacation stuff, and then like are not able to pay for the kids' tuition, and not learning. Like they're lacking both types of lechem, like the practical lechem and like the lechem of the soul. If you want to hear this, by the way, he actually did a podcast episode on some other like forum podcast with
Lichtenstein's podcast.
And so he goes over all the same points that he did. This was in Shabbos in yeshiva, but he did a podcast not on Shabbos. So if you're interested in it, it was about being kovei itim l'Torah, and it was very good. So that's the example that was coming to my mind when we were talking just now.
Headlines.
Yeah. Okay. So should we check out some meforshim? Let's check out some meforshim. Oh, actually, before we check out meforshim, I haven't read this yet, but I remember that when I was writing up Mishlei ideas, I wrote up my idea for this. I just didn't reread it. I just wanted to check to make sure I have it. So let's see what I wrote. Investing in Kavod. Okay, better to be a degraded laborer. That fits in better than to maintain your honor and lack bread. Okay, everyone seeks Kavod, honor or dignity, and tries to avoid degradation. However, the Chacham recognizes that it may be necessary to forego Kavod in the short run and temporarily endure degradation if this will ultimately lead to a long-term Kavod which is stable. For example, he will be willing to do menial labor if this is necessary for supporting himself and his family, knowing that this will allow him to maintain his dignity in the long run. The fool, on the other hand, will strive to artificially maintain or increase his kavod in the short term, even if this will result in a much greater degradation in the long run. For example, he will refuse to do jobs which he considers to be beneath him in a vain attempt to preserve his kavod, not thinking about how much kavod he will ultimately lose when he hits rock bottom in his poverty. Okay, then I added, there are at least 3 factors which contribute to the fool's mistake. 1, viewing kavod as a real and inherent attribute of himself, rather than a relational circumstance which is subject to change. Let me pause and try to understand that for a second. viewing kavod as a real and inherent attribute of himself rather than a relational circumstance which is subject to change. So I think what I meant by that is like this guy who wants to maintain his kavod views it as like an all or nothing thing. Either I am honored or I'm dishonored, as opposed to, no, this is like a commodity that I can start off with not very much kavod and then earn it and then get it later on, 2, his unwillingness to face the fact that his kavod might not last, since this realization would interfere with his ability to enjoy his kavod. So that's this guy, again, the guy in the second half is clinging to his kavod because he doesn't want to even think about the fact that he might lose it. But the first guy is willing to say, look, I'm going to be degraded for a while. I'm going to go work at Starbucks, like, even though I have like a whole family to support, and like most people aren't working at Starbucks when they have a family to support, but like, I'm going to do that anyway, because that's going to let me like get in the door, and like they have good insurance and they're going to pay for my school, blah, blah, blah. I'm using that example because there's this book, I can't remember what it was called. My mom got this book for me a while ago, about this guy who was this CEO of this very successful company. And I think he cheated on his wife, and then she divorced him. And then like, he like lost all of his money in the divorce settlement, and like his kids refused to talk to him and stuff. So he had to go work at a Starbucks. And when he was, I think he was like 50 or something like that. He had to go work at a Starbucks, and like, he was working for like this manager who was like this like 20-year-old girl, and who like was like his boss, and it was about like this humbling thing of like working his way up, and like learning lessons about life. It was a really, really enjoyable book. I read it a couple of times. So that's why that example came to my mind.
What is it called?
I don't remember what it's called, but I'll post it in the chat if I remember what it is.
I gotta listen to that.
Yeah. Wait,
read
it might be called like, wait, was it called something like How Starbucks Saved My Life? How Starbucks
Saved His Life.
Yeah. How Starbucks Saved My Life. I think that's it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I think that's pretty much it. Yeah. If it's not, it sounds like a fun book anyway. Okay. And then 3, what are we counting here? 3 factors which contribute to the fool's mistake. The fool's natural tendency to be preoccupied with the immediate pleasure rather than the long-term consequences. Yeah. Right. So the investing in kavod, I think that was my title, because I think that's really the thing. You have to view kavod as an investment, and part of investing means you give up some money now so you can get more money later. You give up your kavod now so you get more money later. And if you try to retain your money now, your kavod now, then it's going to end up costing you long-term. Okay, Rifki?
Yeah, I was just gonna say something I really liked about like the way that you phrased like the 3 things is that it's also a good reminder of like kavod isn't like integral to who you are as a person. Like it's not like it's not like, oh my gosh, like, I feel like we all have certain things that we really view ourselves as like that, we are this.
Yeah.
Isn't that.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like in that, the parak that I was referencing on the Rambam on those pasukim in Yirmiyahu, he says about like, possessions, that you could be a guy who has a whole ship full of merchandise and then it sinks, and then you go from a rich man to a poor man, or you could be a king and then there's a coup and suddenly you go from being a king to being like a commoner, or a trader, and so kavod is not in you, it's relational, and it's not an intrinsic part of you. Okay, good. I'm always glad when an idea holds up, like I didn't know what this was going to say, but I think the idea holds up. Okay, so then let's go to some of the meforshim. I knew this would be a good haul tonight. Okay. Mitzvah David, Tov, Yoser Tov Lamisha Noheg Kalus Ba'atzmo B'hu Eved La'atzmo, Lasos Malachto Lihis Parnes Ba. So better to be a person who conducts himself with degradation and is an Eved to himself to do his work and to make a Parnasa, Mimisha Machzik Atmo Lemechubad, than someone who like presents himself as honored, uboshu lavod avodaso, and he's too ashamed to do his work. And then because of that, he lacks his bread. I think that must have been where I got it from. I think I think a lot of mefarshim take that. Let me just say, wow, long meiri. Let's look at, I want to see if someone says about Hashem. Yeah, see, Radak also says similarly. Tov Nikla, Omer ki ha'adam she'is nahig b'ma'at shivlus, a guy who conducts himself with a little bit of lowliness, v'yis asik b'malachto, and he is involved in work, v'yis asher, and he becomes wealthy, v'yikne lo eved, and he acquires an eved for himself. Wow, so he's learning a whole story for the first half. He starts off low and gets to the point where he gets an eved. So he's better. Mimisha rotze lihis kabed v'yizalzo lasos malacha. He's better than a guy who wants to be honored, v'yizalzel lasos malacha, and he is degraded to do work, v'yavu anius, and he comes to poverty, ad shitzarach l'chazer al psakim, until he needs to beg at the doors. I'm not sure I understand what he's saying. Okay, we read the Rabag. Oh, Rashi doesn't say it never to Hashem. For shame. Okay, fine. Let me look at the Rambam. Rambam looks interesting. Okay. Yadua midercha musar. It is known that by way of musar, here musar meaning character traits, I guess. Ki alpha pisha hagaiva niteves lifnei Hashem yisale. Even though haughtiness is abominable before God, hasilsul derech hagun umukubal. So I was trying to look up silsul. Silsul literally means like smoothing out, but he must be using it in a different way. Let me just actually go get my a dictionary, another dictionary. I looked up the dictionaries online, couldn't find a good translation. Silsul is like related to the word like mesila yisharim, like mesila is a path because it's smoothed out. But silsul also means to comb your hair. So let's see, silsul. I doubt it means a small basket. All right, let me look up silsul, different spelling. Curling, waving of hair, or flourish of voice. Okay, I don't know what he means. Let's try to infer what he means from here. Silsul derchagon umukubal. So silsul, whatever this means, is a proper and acceptable path. V'hu migeder hatznius. It's part of a modesty. Okay, the Indian hagaiva. So haughtiness is shahadam misnase al chavero. As a person raises himself over his fellow. The Indian hasilsul, but silsul is shiach soch atzmo min hashpala. Okay, you restrict yourself from being low, v'habizayon, and from being degraded. So it sounds like dignity might be the English term here. In other words, dignity is not haughtiness, but dignity means you're not degraded. Okay, and it sounds like he's saying that that's what nikla is here. Okay, let's see. V'amru b'musarim. It says in the Musar books, hashpel mibli hisnabel. V'histalso mibli hisgadel. Okay, that's a rhyming one. Lower yourself without being degraded. Be misalso yourself without making yourself great. Yeah, that's I think dignity is the good English word for it. So lower yourself without being degraded. Maintain your dignity without making yourself without aggrandizing yourself. Same thing later on in Mishlei. It says if you become degraded in raising yourself. Okay, fine. That's another pasuk. V'hanevelus v'hashpala v'habizayon kasher yisba'er. You know what? I'm going to look at my good version of this also because it has nukudos and I feel like I'm getting words wrong. I don't know if there's going to be a difference here. This will be the last of the meforshim we do tonight because I think we've I'm full. I'm satiated with the bread of ideas right now. He says, v'ata bal haskilcha. Okay, yeah, that's not what this one says. Now he's coming to enlighten you. That the opposite extreme from silsul, from dignity, is not good and not proper. It's not proper for a person to conduct himself with authority. To abstain from work when you need to do it. Person should always do a type of work that is foreign for him and not depend on people for tzedakah. Yeah, I always wonder this. Again, I'm not judging particular people because I don't really know the situation, but you hear of people. I mean, I guess I heard of people in when I was a high school teacher about let's say people who's students whose fathers were out of work, and you hear for someone who's out of work for a while and let's say they have a specialized profession, you wonder how long before they go and get a type of job that is not their profession, certain cases, I feel like so-and-so is out of work for years. And at that point, again, I don't know their personal circumstances, but I'm like, okay, so let's say you can't find work in your line of work. So find another job. You're clearly a smart enough individual to be in that line of work, and I'm not saying it's easy. I'm saying but that's what this chazal is talking about. I'm saying do a type of work that's foreign to you and don't be dependent on people for tzedakah. V'amru od hafshet hanavela. Oh, this is my favorite one. Hafshet hanavela bashuk v'al tomar adam gadol anochi. Actually, that's not my favorite one. That's not a different statement. You should skin carrion in the marketplace, or in modern terms, you should skin roadkill. Okay, and don't say I'm too big of a man. Okay,
What's carrion?
Carrion is like a dead animal that dies like in the street. Meaning that you should even be willing to do like a disgusting type of work. And not say, "Look, this is beneath my dignity." Alkain Amar Tov Nikla ve'evedlo shiachrosh v'yizrov yasuk b'malachto. That's why it says, "Better a degraded person who is an eved to him," meaning that he plows and plants and works in his malacha. Because he's not really explaining what that is. Mimis Kavod b'chasar lachem yinachosech atmo ina malacha l'salsa atmo l'his kabed. Then someone who refrains from working in order to maintain his dignity and to have kavod. But he needs to work. And he is lacking bread when he refrains from it. And he needs people. So it sounds like what Rבינו is saying is like this. Sounds like he's saying there's three things. Okay, there's haughtiness, there's maintaining your dignity, and then there's degradation. So he's saying that haughtiness is bad all the time. Okay, and maintaining your dignity is proper. But if it's a question of maintaining your dignity and lacking bread, or going beneath your dignity and working, you should go beneath your dignity. Okay. Now, the thing that caught my eye about Rבינו Yona is he's not talking about all the stuff that everyone else is talking about like, I mean, maybe he is, but he's putting the emphasis on midos and musar, I don't know. I'm not sure what like you saw the other meforshim that we read. He sounds like he's talking in a different way. I don't know exactly what he's getting at.
I mean, it does seem like, another question that I had on Rבינו Yona was like, someone who just wants to maintain his dignity, but he's not normally a haughty person. Yeah. Doesn't that stem from haughtiness?
No, I think that's the point he's making. He's saying that haughtiness is an extreme, and maintaining your dignity, he's like, that's the he's talsel mibli he's gadel. You can maintain your dignity without being making yourself like better than the other person, or like holier than thou, or measuring yourself based on the other person. Like,
yeah, I know that's what he's saying, but like,
Kavod brios is a thing, right? We don't hold that you should walk around being all shabby and like with stains on your clothing and like unkempt,
No, I get that, but like at the end of the day, if it comes down to you surviving versus,
that's what he's saying. Yeah, that's what he's saying. If it comes down to you surviving, then you should sacrifice your dignity.
I know. My question is, if he doesn't do that, if he doesn't sacrifice that, isn't that like me stemming from something else? Like,
yeah, correct. Haughtiness? Right. So I guess maybe this is the idea then, is that there is a default situation of moderating your haughtiness and your degradation, which is what he's calling silsul, which is dignity. But that is a priority that changes. There's a hierarchy of needs. In other words, like once you have a need, a basic need that you're not fulfilling, then that becomes an imperfection. Maintaining your dignity becomes an imperfection. If it's an obstacle to practicality, I think that's the point. If it's an obstacle to practicality, then that's when it becomes an imperfection. If maintaining your dignity, there's nothing wrong with that. Everyone is entitled to their dignity. But if your dignity is getting in the way of eating, then it shows a distortion.
Yeah, exactly. And like, where does that come from?
Right. Where does it come
from? Like that's my question. Like,
that's a good question.
Like that's what I was trying to understand. Like that's why my intuition would lead me to believe that a guy like it stems from haughtiness.
Right.
Maybe deep down. Like,
I mean, he does seem to suggest that it stems from haughtiness, right? Yeah. I mean, I think the haughtiness I don't know if this is where it comes from, but this is definitely an element of it. I think part of the haughtiness is like this denial, like that this could happen to you. Like, how could this happen? How could I be in a situation where I don't have enough money? Like, so you want to deny that, and refusing to do that work is your way of like of denying that. Yeah, Ayala?
Yeah. Maybe also like tying back to the other meforshim and other people were saying is that when you look at society's standards, or I guess like honor, as like a actual reality,
right,
then you would see you'd see dignity, like even if you're not to the extent that like you need to be haughty and you have to have a ton of honor, but like you can see dignity as a reality too. This is saying it's not a physical reality. So when there is a different physical reality which takes precedence, then that should take precedence.
That's right. That's a good way to put it. Okay, good. Okay, let's summarize what we've got so far. Let's attempt to summarize. Okay, and then we'll call it a night. Okay, so we have Rivki and Ariel's approach, which is that the person, both people in the pasuk are lacking bread, okay, and are therefore in a situation where they don't have honor, right, because they're poor. Okay, the first person accepts it and says, okay, I'm poor, I have to now work, and I'm going to do what it takes. And then if he does that, he'll eventually get out of the poverty and he'll get his honor back. But the second guy says, no, I refuse to acknowledge that. I'm going to still pretend that I'm honor, or I'm going to project an image of honor. And like, and he thinks that that's somehow going to like, like he can somehow like change the reality based on that, but no, it's just going to delay it and make it worse probably, and so it's again stemming from this desire for honor, but he has to recognize the that the best way to get the honor back is to like face the dishonor right now. Alex and Yosef were saying that this is about better to be degraded and to be a servant of Hashem, which I didn't look through all the meforshim, but I didn't see anyone who said that it's servant of Hashem, even though I like this idea. And even if it means giving up on all the other types of honors that people value, those are all subjective, transient honors that aren't really about the essence of man. But that is what a man can truly glory in. But then that's better than even the guy who's the totally self-made man, who's the most honored in people's eyes, because that guy is really, again, just investing something in something transient that's not really the essence of the human. And then there was the speculative idea that Yosef and I both like, but we're skeptical about in terms of the idea, is his honor is stemming from the he's facing the reality that the real human state is to not have honor before Hashem. Actually, the one who says this best is David HaMelech. I only know how to find it from the Rambam. In the end of Hilchos Shofar, וסוכה, ולולב, when he's talking about David HaMelech dancing in front of the Sefer Torah. Chapter 8, halacha. Yeah. Halacha Tesvav. The simcha that a person rejoices in the doing of the mitzvos and in the love of God who commanded them. Avoda gedolahi. That's a great avoda to God. Anyone who withholds himself from this rejoicing is fit to be punished. Nemar, as it says, because you did not serve Hashem your God with joy and with gladness of heart. Anyone who is haughty and retains his own kavod, he even uses the term, he honors himself in his own eyes in these places. So again, in these places where you're supposed to be honoring God and by rejoicing, and you say, no, that's beneath my dignity, chote v'shote, he is a sinner and a fool. He's your Shlomo of Amar al tishadra lifnei melech. This is what Shlomo warns when he says, do not glorify yourself in front of a king. Here, the king being God. Anyone who degrades himself, lowers himself and degrades his body in these places, that's the person who's truly deserving of kavod. This is very good in terms of the idea from Alex and Yosef. David says, same word, nikle. I will be even more degraded from this. And I will be degraded in my eyes. So this is when David HaMelech was dancing in front of the Sefer, the Aron, and he was like dancing in a way that was unbecoming of a king, and like people could like see, his tunic or whatever. And Michal was like ashamed of him, and he was saying, no, this is the place where I cannot maintain any kavod because there's no kavod in front of Hashem. There's no greatness and honor other than to rejoice before Hashem. I just had an idea. Hold on. It says David Melech dance wildly in front of Hashem. Is this a possible explanation for simcha, for drunkenness on Purim? Right? Because he talks about all the same themes of simcha, sheyismach adam basiyas and mitzvos, and avas hakel. And we know obviously simcha is a theme of Purim, and avas Hashem, that was kimu v'kiblu kimu masha kiblu kvar, that they accepted the Torah with ahava, and that, ordinarily we say that degrading yourself is not a good thing, but being able to engage in a type of simcha that is that in other contexts would be a degradation. Like the king is not supposed to degrade himself, right? Like bizayon of a melech is like chayav misa, like in other cases, but lifnei, the true melech, I don't know, something to think about for next year, for Purim. Okay, anyway, so that was Yosef and Alex. Then we have Mayan's idea, which is in terms of leadership, that better to be someone who is degraded in the eyes of people for a superficial reason, or where Ariel said of like the people look down on your decisions, but you actually are serving them, than to be someone who tries to do whatever's going to get approval in the eyes of the people, but you're really like not bringing in the results. Isaiah's idea, half idea, is about investing your energy in kavod, that it should be in something that has a actual reality, like a commodity, or an eved who like actually supports your system, like Ayala wanted to say, and brings in the kavod rather than like something more superficial, where you're not caring for your needs. My idea was based on the Rambam and the Mitzudas David, which is investing in kavod, that like, if you're in a situation where you have needs, you should be willing to do work that's even like labor, menial work, and because that's an investment in long-term kavod. And instead of like trying to maintain your dignity and refusing to work, and then you're going to end up in a worse situation of degradation. And I said that the 3 reasons why you would be tempted to maintain your kavod are that you view kavod as a real thing instead of a relational thing. You don't want to think about the fact that you can't lose it. So you like try to maintain it as much as possible. And then the what was the other thing I said? There's a 3. Third one was, you're just preoccupied with immediate pleasure instead of long-term consequences. And then there's Rביnu Yona, who says that it's okay to maintain your dignity in general, but if there's something that takes precedence over that, more basic need, then you have to be willing to forego your dignity, and remember that it's not a real thing. It's like a perk. It's not a real thing, like I was saying. And you have to take care of your basic needs first. Okay, that was a nice pasuk, a lot of applications. And I do think, even though I said it at the very beginning, I think that this should apply to knowledge also. Like you have to be willing to realize when you're ignorant in an area, and like be willing to be degraded in terms of, I don't know why I'm doing this, being degraded in terms of asking a question that is going to make you look dumb, or like subordinating yourself to someone to learn something that I should know this by now, because in the long run that's going to get you the more kavod, and if you just like mask the ignorance, then that's going to eventually lead to like degradation.
Yeah, are we having a shiur next week, by the way? I'm not sure.
Shiur next week?
Yeah,
as far as I know. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Because you posted in the chat, like for the morning Mishlei, it's the last 2 full days of Mishlei. Is that?
Well, that was because but that was just for the morning. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And not for the night shiur. Yeah.
Your old idea that you just said, like on the chat.
Oh, did you said, can I paste it on the chat? I just didn't hear you.
Not like the Zoom one, like the
on the after party chat. Yeah, sure. Yeah. Okay, good. All right, that was a nice idea. Okay. All right. Thanks for coming, and have a good week. Till next time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye.